Let's call this special meeting to order. I don't think we have a crowd at the door, so we're 10 seconds early here, but we'll get started. 6 p.m. Tuesday, December 6th. Barb's birthday. Barb's birthday?
Hey.
Just now
saying,
you tell
huh?
us.
30? Yeah. You can just go out and get a cake.
Well,
39, right?
I'd like to acknowledge the press and public, and Barb has been notified. First order of business we're going to deal with tonight is the award of the dredging contract. This is a activity that has we've taken bids. You're all familiar with the scope of the work, and we've taken bids now, and I'm going to ask the administrator to walk us through the results and recommendation from our engineering.
Okay, we'll be happy to do that. As you can see from the bid tab, we received 3 bids. There was a huge disparity in the bids. The low bidder is $423,510, which is within the budget that we had planned for dredging that you have seen on the project worksheet. This happens to be the same dredge company that dredged the Isle of Palms Marina for us before. So we see that as somewhat advantageous because we know that he is familiar with the problems at that location and familiar with the players at the marina site. So that should be beneficial. We sort of feel like the other 2 bids, in some cases these things, they put a bid out there and they figure, well, if they happen to be the low bid, then, it's kind of gravy. But the disparity is so huge that we just kind of think that those bidders were just maybe hopeful that there wouldn't be anybody else in the mix that would be any lower, because we're talking about $1,251,486 is the second lowest and $1,566,084 as the third. And so the engineer has examined the bids for accuracy and had conversations with all 3 of the bidders. Were pre-qualified, so they know what they're getting into. Just to refresh everyone's memory, the scope of this project is different from the scope of the prior project in terms of what we're doing at the marina site. When we dredged before, we had not replaced the bulkhead, and we had concerns about getting too close to the bulkhead, and so we had the dredger stay off the bulkhead. Since the last dredging, we've replaced the bulkhead, so we will be able to get closer to the bulkhead with the dredging, and this time we'll be dredging to 12 feet, which is deeper than we dredged before. Additionally, the scope goes around the corner, not just on Morgan Creek, but on the Intercoastal Waterway side, and past that open drainage ditch that's right there at the corner of our property. There's some significant silting in there. So our scope is greater than last time, and the amount of the bid reflects that. But I think it was $9 and something per cubic, $9.13 per cubic yard, which was right at what the estimates were per cubic yard on the bidding. And so the engineer has given the Real Property Committee a recommendation that we award this contract to Conmar Limited, doing business as Marcall Dredging, and that's the recommendation that's before you tonight.
Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to award the contract to Conmar Limited for the dredging and per the scope detail for $423,510. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion seconded? Seconded.
And we do need a contingency on that.
The motion is contingent on obtaining all necessary permits. We still have one outstanding permit that has yet to come through from the Corps, isn't it? Yeah. But it's in process. You don't have it today, so I assume it's still coming towards us. So we're not going to officially award any contract. Well, we may notify them that they are the low bidder and have been selected, but they're not going to get a notice to proceed until we get a signed permit from the Corps.
So this is conditional, like one of your drives, in case you're not sure if you can play it? Is that it?
You're right. It's unfortunate. I use that term too often. That's why I know conditional. Any other discussion? This is a large scope for the city. We're going to 12 feet at the marina. Should last us far longer than the last dredging effort, and hopefully now with the bulkhead in place, dredging executed, the marina's good to go for quite a while. We just need to have the ditch out there, the intercoastal, sufficiently deep enough for us to get boats in and out, so.
If I may,
Ryan?
how far are we going from our bulkhead out into Morgan Creek?
I'm going to ask the engineer to respond to that. He's asking the distance from our bulkhead out into the creek.
There is sorry, yeah, sure.
Yes, it is.
There is an official channel, designated channel in Morgan Creek on the opposite side of the creek, and I believe it's either 40 or 60 feet wide, so your dredge footprint will go all the way to the north side of that channel. So essentially, all the way across the creek.
And the only concern I have with this is will there be any residual silting from the opposite side of that creek back into our side?
Possibly, yes.
Okay. Michael?
At this point, I think I'd like to ask Linda to give a summary that this is a solo project of the City of Isle of Palms, and Morgan Creek Marine Association and DeWeese is not involved in this. And could you give a brief overview just for the knowledge of everyone on the island?
I'm really glad you asked that question because I wanted to add that, or asked me to do that. If you all recall, when we dredged before, it was an endeavor that involved the City of Isle of Palms, the Morgan Creek Harbor Association, and DeWeese. When we first started working on this endeavor this time, we wanted to do another joint project, very similar to what we had done before. We had a couple of complications in trying to do that. The biggest of which, I think, was that we could not get our timing simultaneous. The other players at the table were not ready to dredge on the same time frame that we were. We're actually a year past when we wanted to dredge. So we're overdue to dredge in terms of the conditions at the marina. And the Morgan Creek Harbor Association, because they had spent some money in painting their bulkhead and because they really did not have as strong a need to move forward with dredging, had basically looked at 2013 is their year, and they have moved forward with their plans. The other thing that we had difficulty in coming to terms on was when we worked with them before. Basically, the Morgan Creek Harbor Association paid for everything, all of the city's expenses, all of the expenses towards dredging. The city's role was that we applied for the permit, and the permit was in the city's name, but the city had no expenses associated with the project. We attempted to negotiate a similar deal this time. We were not able to do that. We requested that Morgan Creek come back with some alternate terms, and about January of last year, basically, we were notified that they were not willing to go forward. We were not able to come to terms with them, and we needed to go ahead. And the negotiations could have continued for a whole nother year, and we still would not have been able to move forward. I do believe, and it's my hope, if it's the will of council, that at some point in time in the future, when we're all contemplating dredging again, which would be the 26th Avenue Canal folks who have to dredge, Morgan Creek, DeWeese, and the City of Isle of Palms, I'm still hopeful that at some point in the future we can do another model project of everyone being involved, and come to a satisfactory arrangement. Maybe now that we will all have some more time to plan in that direction, then we can maybe get on the same schedule.
Okay. Thank you. Does that satisfy your details? Any other questions?
One last question. The council-elect, we don't vote on this
You don't
tonight.
vote on this, no.
Just making sure everybody else up front knows.
Just, you're in the on-deck circle.
All right. Get my back
If that
ready.
translates, and I know it's basketball season, but you're in the on-deck circle. All right, any further questions, concerns? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're moving into the rest of the agenda. Council's agenda. You're now not in the on-deck circle. You're up to bat. Before you have consideration appointments, let me get to the right pages here. standing committees of council. I proposed, and you have in your packet, the 2012 standing committees of city council. As you can see, can I have a motion to approve those? At this reading, we will, just for form, we will do this again in January, just to solidify everything. So this is our first pass, if you will. Hopefully, it doesn't change, but
So moved.
Second.
motion and seconded. Any discussion? None heard? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Carries forward. All right, now we're moving into the boards and commissions. You have in your package recommendations from the Personnel Committee for the various boards and commissions, so let me review them, and we'll take them one at a time here. Combination Tax Advisory Committee is recommended that we reappoint Sandy Ferenz, appoint Mary Alice, Francis, and Jim Covington would be appointed to new positions of cultural, hospitality, and lodging. As you know, we opened this up again at the Personnel Committee level, sought additional applicants. They've been received, interviewed, and this is the slate of candidates coming forward to us to consider. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the recommendations
So
as
moved.
presented.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion on the parties? As you can see, we've moved David Nelson. Everybody has to be sponsor of cultural, whatever. David is going to be now a lodging representative for us. So, any further discussions on this? None heard, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You don't vote.
I'm still on council. Until the new people are sworn in, I am still on council.
Board of Zoning Appeals. We have the reappointment, Michael Lehman, being recommended. Can I have a motion to reappoint Michael Lehman?
So moved.
Motion seconded. Any discussion? I'm assuming it was seconded. Did somebody second it?
I moved.
I'll second.
Okay, getting ahead of ourselves here. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Motion carries. Thank you. Code Board of Appeals, reappointment of Mary Carter and William Mitchell. Any discussion? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're at the Planning Commission. I know it's going to have some discussion under the Planning Commission. Planning Commission has 3 openings for consideration. The Personnel Committee has put forward the names of Diana Turk and Noel Scott for reappointment, and the appointment of Patrick Harrington for an open position. So, Marty.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we reappoint Noel Scott, reappoint Ron Denton, and appoint Patrick Harrington
Second.
to the Planning Commission.
Okay. We have a motion seconded. Let's have a discussion. Barb?
Given it a lot of thought, and I actually talked to Marty today, I think it's interesting that this past, 3 years, the Planning Commission has undertaken a huge controversial project and has worked diligently and hard, long hours at it, and I think it's a shame that right at the end, right when they're going to succeed at something, we're taking some of the players off the team. No reflection at all on Patrick Harrington. I think he's a great guy. I'd just like to see through this parking plan that we stick with all the incumbents, or what do you want to call them? Ron, Diane, and Noel.
Are you amending the motion?
All right, I'll amend the motion to that.
I have an amendment to the motion. Do I have a second to the amendment?
Second.
Motion amended and seconded. Any discussion, further discussion on the amended motion of reappointing the 3 parties that are up for consideration? The parties have been deep into this, and I hate to change horses in the middle of the stream while we're dealing into the parking.
And I understand we are. We had folks last go-around that were deep into this. did a lot of research into it, spent a lot of their time. I see Patrick Harrington as a person that can bring perhaps a little more, with his background, a little more organization to the Planning Commission and make the whole process move a little smoother.
Okay. Other discussion? Mark?
During my involvement with the city and going back and doing a little research, for the last 12 years, we have never removed anyone from the city, made any changes on the Planning Commission after one term. If you really go back and look at, no one has been, unless they voluntarily came off the Planning Commission, we have never made someone come off the Planning Commission. And quite frankly, I've been following the work on the Planning Commission. As people know, I served on the Planning Commission for 3 years and was the past chairman. And, the incumbents on there, I mean, Diane, Noel, and Ron Denton have worked very hard, and this is a critical moment for the parking plan. We have not been able to we're trying to get our arms around this parking situation for the island, and it's the best interest in the residents, as far as I can see, to reappoint all 3 standing members for the next year until we can really get this plan in work before council and something to go forward.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, just, I may not be accurate on this, but I believe that there were some folks that were appointed to the Planning Commission to fill a partial term and were not reappointed when we did the next appointments. So I would say you got a little mistake in your statement there. But nonetheless, I know that if I don't make a city council meeting, I have other folks that are sitting up here that will do the job, that have the same information that I have, as is with the Planning Commission. Right now, they're in an information gathering stage. I know there have been discussions, but my hopes would be that once all the information is gathered, they're going to study that information and act on the information that they have gained or gleaned from the residents of our island, and not some idea that they've had back from the time they started. That part kind of scares me. Perhaps we need, I'm thinking we need some new blood in there to give it a fresh look.
Okay. Any other comments from my left?
Yeah, just
No
one.
comments from my right?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
just I think he's underestimating. I think they're more in the getting information stage. I mean, there have been, if you've gone to many Planning Commission meetings, which I have, they've come out with all sorts of concepts and tweak them and change them, and some are very passionate in one way and some are very passionate in the other way. I think they're close. I think giving the citizens the information now is almost the last step, trying to involve the citizens again one more time in knowing what's going on, and then they're going to go back, they're going to put together a plan, and then they're going to bring it to us. So I don't want to underestimate the work they've done in the last 2 years.
Okay. On the table, we have amendment to the motion. We're going to vote on that. All in favor of the amendment to the motion, please say aye.
Would you please repeat the amendment?
The amendment is to reappoint Noel Scott, Diane O'Tork, and Ron Denton.
Correct. Understood?
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
May I please
All-
see hands? Barb, the mayor, and Michael?
All opposed, please say no.
No.
Motion, amendment does not carry. So we have the primary motion, which is to appoint Noel Scott, Patrick Harrington, and Ron Denton to the Planning Commission. Discussion on the primary motion?
Am I allowed to speak or not?
Sure.
Yeah, I think the voting would have to be something that Sterling would have to opine on, but.
I am still on city
Yeah,
council,
you
am I
can
not?
speak. You
So
can
I,
speak.
thank you. I just want to say, I was chairman of the Personnel Committee for 3 years, not just past year. And our policy, unwritten policy, at least while I was chairman, was that people could serve 2 terms, and then we would ask them to leave if there were other people waiting in line to serve. It never had anything to do with the quality of the person, what we thought of them, anything. It was, if there are people waiting in line, we wanted to get more citizens involved in government and excited about the island. There was one person that had served, I think that was Mr. Dick Watson, that had served, filled out a term, and then served a full second term. That's the only time that a person maybe left before 4 years. He was there, I think, 3 years. That's the only one I think that Mr. Patelli is referring to. At our Personnel Committee meeting, it was quite clear that Mr. Patelli did not want Diane Oltorek on the Planning Commission. It's my understanding that she always comes to the meetings prepared. She's a very hard worker and does her job. And I would like Mr. Patelli to explain to everyone, Ms. Oltorek has finished 1 term. She's up for a second. Ron Denton has been on there for 2 terms. I did not.
3 terms.
Or maybe 3 terms. And I'll say right now, I did not support Ron Denton's continuing on the Planning Commission. It had absolutely nothing to do with Ron Denton. I think he's a fantastic person. He's done good work on the Planning Commission. I have no issues there. But we had, if I'm not mistaken, 16 people waiting in line that want to be on the Planning Commission. And I can't see keeping someone there if he's been there 3 terms, now going into 4. But I'd like to ask Mr. Patelli why it is specifically he opposes a second term for Ms. Diane Oltorek.
I think you probably answered the question, that we need to get someone new onto the planning
Then why are you
commission.
why do you think Mr. Denton should stay if we have to get someone new?
I'm not here to argue
Just answer the question.
points. I think Patrick Harrington will do a great job.
You still didn't answer the question. why you
Mr.
think-
Mayor, this
Well,
isn't
this is not-
appropriate,
this is not-
please.
Point of order. Fine.
This is not a meeting.
We're not going to get into a, say what I was thinking.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
we did have one appointee, Miss Lisa Safford, who served for 1 year
Part of a term.
and then was removed. So,
Correct.
yes,
Yes,
1 year.
last time.
Stand correct.
So, I mean, those policies obviously don't hold true.
Okay. Any other discussion? None heard. All in favor of the primary motion to...
What's the primary motion again?
Let me see if I can restate. To reappoint Noel Scott, Ron Denton, and a new appointment of Patrick Harrington to planning.
No, that was not it. Your original motion,
Yeah, that's
Yes, that's the original motion.
That's the original.
Yeah, that's your...
Councilman Batali made the motion.
Okay? Well, we got it on the recording, if nothing else. That's the
That was
primary.
it.
That's the primary motion.
that's the primary.
Any other questions on the primary motion? Did you
Try
get-
again.
No, reappoint Noel Scott and Ron Denton, and to appoint for the first time Patrick Harrington to the planning commission.
Okay.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Yeah.
3 noes. Okay,
Who are the no's?
Me? Are you taking names? Are you taking names?
No, I didn't hear who it was.
you have before you consideration for the reappointment of our city attorney and assistant city attorney.
A little dicey. I'm reading litigators right now.
Can I entertain a motion? Can I have a motion?
Second.
Motion and second to reappoint Sterling and Clay to the respective positions. I think we've been well served,
Yes, sir.
Yep.
so.
Mr. Mayor?
We don't normally throw compliments around here, particularly towards attorneys.
I think we need a speech.
So,
I have thoroughly enjoyed the past year working with all of you, and it's just been a pleasure. So I certainly hope that you would reappoint me for next year as well.
well, since I started it, the thing that most people in council don't realize is how much Linda depends on council to provide clear and concise advice in council.
Not this council, that council.
That council. Yeah, she knows better than this council. And I encourage that, in fact, we'll hear about this come January, everybody on council does not have access to Sterling. We all go through Linda so that she controls the audio and video of the billing cycle also. But we need to keep Linda involved anytime we need advice. But periodically, I've needed advice, other people on council have needed advice. Linda and Sterling have always been willing to take that on and bring it forward. So I thank our legal staff for their fine work. So. All right, any other consideration? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. Very good.
Thank you.
You're with us again, whether you like it or not. All right, we have on the agenda the appointment of, we have a nominee. Marty has volunteered again to serve on the Cardiff Board of Directors, which is not as easy a task as most of you might think. But I would like to, I'll nominate Marty to serve on the Cardiff Board. I'd like a second.
Second.
It's a time-consuming and, in some cases, emotionally charged meetings, et cetera. And it's a difficult process to sit on a barrier island here and talk about the transit authority throughout the greater Charleston area. So, all in favor of Marty serving in Cardiff, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None heard. I don't think it requires an action of council, but I plan to continue to serve on the COG and the Charleston Visitors Bureau. That was in the notes on your standing committees, just so that everybody's aware of that.
It's all yours.
Huh?
It's all yours.
Yeah, well, it's not fun, I tell you. I have no issues for executive session have been brought forward under miscellaneous business. I have just a couple of things. One is our next formal setting. We'll keep the decorations up, however. It's January 3rd at 6 p.m. We will have inauguration of 2 members. Then our next formal meeting for business conduct will be on January 24th. I hope that's on your calendar. You should have all the dates for the rest of the year in your packet. And I don't have any other miscellaneous business other than the parking meeting. The 3rd in a row will be next Tuesday night, the 13th, I believe, at the Exchange Club. If you don't have it on your calendar, put it on the calendar. I think the first 2 have been worthwhile.
Again, 5:30?
I'm assuming it's the same time. I don't know. The citizens have come out, not in mass numbers, but enough citizens to make it worthwhile, providing additional input to planning and council, some more emotional than others, some factual, some emotional. But I think it's been worthwhile for all of us. I'm pleased we've done it, and I'm hopeful that this last one will be as fruitful. So, any other items to be brought forward?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Before I take a vote on adjourning, I'd like to thank Ralph for all his time and energy on council. It's, I won't call it a labor of love, but it has to be a labor. And your time has been well served, and the city's better off for having had you serve here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for the calendar.
You voted no. I could have baked it again, something if we had known.
I'm trying to forget them now. We've had enough.
We're talking about more.
Well, no, actually,
We're talking about more.
there you go.